filled with ad-free music made for everything you do, mashup channels, workout channels, channels for parties, or just chilling out and more. Expertly curated for any mood, occasion, or activity. Extra channels let you discover new music and enjoy even more variety from every decade and music style you love. Plus, you can watch some of your favorite SiriusXM shows with SiriusXM Video. And you can do it all along with listening in your car as part of our music and entertainment plan. Right now, we're offering SiriusXM subscription plans for as low as $6 a month, plus fees and taxes. Call 844-711-8800 to find out more about these amazing offers.
With the SiriusXM Platinum VIP plan, you can unlock the ultimate listening experience in up to 2 cars and stream anywhere with 2 app logins. Enjoy our greatest content, opportunities for live VIP experiences, and prioritized customer care. Plus, get access to over 5,000 audio and video concert recordings through nugs.net. Call 844-711-8800 and become a VIP. Offer details apply. Not available in Canada.
Get play-by-play from your teams, your favorite music, commercial-free, and personalities like Howard Stern, no matter where you live. Unlock it all now. Activate your radio by visiting www.siriusxm.com/go to sign up online quickly or call 844-711-8800 now.
Amazing moments happen so much at SiriusXM. We want you to see them. SiriusXM Video lets you watch your favorite SiriusXM shows on the SiriusXM app. Groundbreaking interviews, amazing in-show moments, behind-the-scenes footage, live performances, all come to life in a way you only imagined before. Plus, you can create your own personalized Pandora station based on the artists you love. And hear over 100 extra channels filled with ad-free music for every mood or occasion. Get your first 6 months of our Platinum plan for only $8.33 per month, plus fees and taxes. Just call 844-711-8800 to take advantage of this amazing offer.
There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, I see. You gotta get this. You gotta get this.
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 018148688.
Found a mentor, you found a coach. Well, today, human beings learn the same way. We learn by immersion and we learn by getting feedback in real time based on things we're doing. I'm so passionate about coaching because for time immemorial, that's how the job got done, where there was lasting change. Where there's someone there consistently with you that understands you, knows what you're missing, knows what you want, knows what the challenges are, knows what gets in the way. You need something outside you. The greatest athletes in the world all have coaches. Why? People already have what they need to succeed. They just need some tweaking. They need some skills or some insights.
Let's get ready to rumble! Rondo de Cortez, Bonjour, Vidi Vidi Vici. Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. According to me and people who love the universe, and that would be you. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Want to be my neighbor. Shut up! 3 o'clock in the morning. I know they nominated me to be spokesperson of the neighborhood, and I like to bring people together, and some people don't appreciate it when it's 3 o'clock in the morning. But today, I'm going to tell you this is a beautiful Wednesday, May 8th, the 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sit ya where the good Lord split you. And hopefully the good Lord didn't split you too high. I want to tell you that. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports Pod on 29 podcast applications all over the universe. You can find us on Google, Alexa, also Amazon Fire Podcast, as well as other podcasts. That's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Fire Podcast, Xfinity Comcast TV, and I really do appreciate the way things are going. You can also find us on 29 podcast platforms. I want to tell you, when I do my show, Big C Sports Podcast, there's so many allergies today. A lot of allergies like lightning. Woo, my nose is running. It's not running, but I'm trying to catch it in my hand because I don't have a napkin. But I want to say, without a napkin, I produce the show, I direct the topics, I broadcast all the shows, I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We could all use more laughter in our life. And some Kleenex, please. Man, the allergies are something else. And then the commercials are done. The stats are provided. I even do the storytelling. And then I do the play-by-play shake. Julius Alexander for 3. Yes! Get the hole in your life. I love doing that. NBA basketball, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they knocked out the Dallas Mavericks last night. And now we have the New York Knicks tonight. They're getting their groove on. And they also have the Boston Celtics doing their play as well. I'll touch on that a little bit later. But then the show's uploaded to 29 podcast platforms all over the universe. As I told you, streaming on 4 TV platforms, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. I need Kleenex to be a sponsor for Big C Sports Podcast. And I'm not joking. I need $6 billion sponsorship so I can buy some Kleenex. Wow. And then the show's uploaded, as I told you, out of New York City. It goes all over the world. Number 10, I never miss a show with Big C Sports Podcast. Through joy, pain, sunshine, and rain, and even all of these pollens that are in the air, and them there hills, Northern California, a lot of people, they want to be nosy, and they want to come around and see if they can hear what you're saying. All they got to do is Google Big C Sports Podcast all over the universe. All spare, love, and war, but that's the way things go. I want to make sure that I pay homage to something that's important to me, and that's called the Veterans Crisis Hotline, because they really are experienced helping veterans to get their help. You know anybody going through issues? Saying thank you for your service is not enough. It's not enough! You can let them know there's a Veterans Crisis Hotline that they really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And I want to also add, not only that, today, downtown in Diedra Hills, California, known as the state's capital, there's a longshoreman rally outside of the Secretary of State building, and they were just trying to get the attention of some of our politicians to make sure that the longshoremen are taken care of. In fact, Double O, she met with California Senator Stephen Bradford and let him know that there's some people trying to get their claims on the longshoremen at the Port of Oakland, that they've been turning away people who've been injured and they need their help. And Senator Bradford said, not only do you make an appointment with my office, but you come to the office. I want to give it all praise. Give it praise, because we all need somebody to lean on. And Senator Bradford, he's amazing. I want to say my show today is a lot different than a lot of shows, because I'm one of the only sports persons in the universe. Is sports person a real word? It's going to have to be, because it's either sports persons or allergies, but something's in my nose. But I want to make sure that I pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste, and a lot of people won't do it. But I do it because I love it with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in doing the right thing. And sometimes when you do the right thing, you might just be on your own. I met a lady today by the name of Queen, and she has so much passion, and she has so much energy. She said, "Hey, I saw you coming out of a hotel." I said, "Hotel? You didn't see me coming out of the hotel?" That's how rumors get started. Hey, well, he looked like you. They say we all look alike, Queen, but don't be saying I was in a hotel. I don't go to hotels, if that makes sense to you, unless I'm with somebody, if that makes sense to you. But it was not me. I tell you, it was not me. And she said, "Well, you know what? You right. We don't want to start rumors." But the rumor I do want to start is there was a little march on the Capitol today with the longshoremen out of Oakland, some people needing some help with their claims, and they're being turned down. And oftentimes when it comes to getting repaired, people try to turn you down. But what I don't want to turn down is what I'm going to bring up to you for reparations. My show is so different today. I'm going to play an attorney that has a lot of information, and her name is Diedra, the former Pearlman, and she's an excellent spokesperson on corporate reparations. Oh, Big C, we don't believe in no reparations. Well, there are people who say they don't believe in reparations, but after you hear today's show, you're not going to be one of those people, if that makes sense to you. And that's what I'm saying. But before I bring you into that, I'm gonna pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force. As I say, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. I want to give praise, and I met every single one of them. Their chair, her attorney, Camila Moore, she's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I'd love to get her on Big C Sports Podcast when she's not in court. At the same time, I want to give praise to Dr. Amos C. Brown, the vice chair. He's brilliant. He's also been on the Big C Sports Podcast. I want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's brilliant. I met with him many times in his office and also at California Reparations Task Force. In fact, Double O, who has her own talk show called Let's Eat. It's economic awareness talk show. You can hear it on Access Sacramento. You can Google it. One of the best talk shows in the universe. He walked into California Senator Stephen Bradford today and let him know about the longshoremen in Oakland that are having some issues. And he said, well, come by my office if that makes sense to you. I want to give him praise. I want to give praise to a council member, Monica Montgomery Steppe. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grills. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to our attorney, Lisa Holder. She's brilliant. She specializes in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, professor at California, Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to attorney Donald K. Tamaki. He's a brilliant man. I love giving him praise. And as a Japanese American, he also received reparations from the internment camps that America did the wrong thing by interning people in internment camps. They were American citizens, if that makes sense. You give them all praise. That's the child of slavery. And I want to say, everybody has their own way of doing a show. I'm going to talk about some things in sports. You got NBA basketball. I'm going to bring that up to you as I talked about. But I want to make sure I'm doing a commercial. Just like the march today at the state capitol, and Big C Sports was there. And I do want to say that I was trying to participate in a commercial, but the sneeze problem is so strong. I was down there sniffing and snotting, so hopefully you don't hear me sniffing and snotting too much today. But I gotta say something that's near and dear to my heart. And I want to talk about a commercial that I'm doing as we're going by leaps and bounds. And I do a commercial because unlike most people that go into a studio, I do my commercial live. I don't do 29 takes. I only get one shot. Ice Cube sang about that in a song. That wasn't Ice Cube, that was Eminem, Big C. Okay, but they still sing about the same thing. Ice Cube does the Big Three, and I'm doing the Big C, if that makes sense to you. But here I go. If I make a mistake, you hear my mistakes. If I don't make a mistake, you don't hear my mistakes. So hopefully you can sing along with me. A Guide to Protect, Preserve, and Transfer Wealth, RDC Development Consulting Inc., in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau and the law office of George Jones. The Missing Link, Long-Term Care, Solutions by the Book, Medicare and You, Taking Care of Tomorrow, Medi-Cal in California, Medicaid, and other parts of the country, RDC for LTC.com. You can find that more. And not only that, your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. You can find out your options, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Tell them Big C sent you. Now, Big C, why would we call that number? Because our promise to you is to specialize to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without a spend down. That all paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by a staff of entitlement specialists. Is that Aflac with the duck? No, that's not Aflac with the duck. That's gap insurance. We do asset protection. Because if you ever go into court, you want to make sure you have your asset protected. And they don't let ducks into the courthouse, but they let the RDC team in with our attorneys into the courthouse, if that makes sense to you. We have ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary, benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescriptions, medical equipment costs, and more. Do you know anyone who's ever dealt with skilled nursing facilities? Do you know anyone who's ever dealt with prescription medication? Do you know anyone who's ever dealt with medical equipment costs and more? Not only that, protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family, avoiding the nightmare debt brought by the government's estate recovery program called probate. That could be from 10 to 40% of your assets. They want to take all of it. They love when you don't have a will and a trust. They love you. They love you even more. They say you're the best asset I've ever seen in my life because you're not protected. And they love when you don't walk around protected, if that makes sense to you. A one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. That's not bad. Not only that, kid, that's a phrase. But not only that, as I say, not only that, in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau and the law office of George Jones, protection insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care. That's important. Avoid probate. Life insurance, veterans benefits, aid and attendance, pre-planning and avoid the look-back period. What about fixed assets, Big C? I'm glad you asked. Your bank account, checking account, savings account, money market account, certificates of deposit, your life insurance with cash values, fixed indexed annuities. How about variable assets, Big C? I'm glad you asked. Real estate, qualified money, IRA, 401k, and other investments. Over 3 decades of experience. Attention business owners. You can find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. Are you talking about Aflac, Big C? No, that's Gap Insurance. The RDC team, we help protect your assets. How do you get that, Big C? 800-772-8624. 800-772-8624. You can give that some praise. And I did it without a mistake. You know, sometimes people make mistakes in life. And the biggest mistake you can make, oftentimes as a business owner, is to not have your asset protected, if that makes sense. I love doing that with Big C Sports and the RDC team. And not only that, when I tell you, whether it's me, the Big C team, or anybody else that says that you should go do your business with them and they want to help you protect your assets or your business or get your trust done or your wills done, oftentimes there's a simple question that you want to ask them, whether it's me or anybody else. You want to ask them, I've learned this the hard way sometimes. You want to say, who endorses you? I'm glad you asked. Not only do we have great endorsements, we have the endorsement, as I said, of the attorney Scott Thibodeau. We have the endorsement of attorney George Jones, Esquire. He's the chairman of the California Black Chamber of Commerce, also California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Mr. Leon Woods, resource development consultant. He also works with many of the top lobbyists in California. We have the endorsement of Miss Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. How do you say you get a bigger endorsement than that? That's important. We also have Ray De La Cruz. Mr. Ray De La Cruz, the CEO of Resource Development Consulting, has the top endorsement of the top legal chief staff of CalPERS, the late Robert Carlson. He endorses the RDC team. Over 33 years doing business. Also, Mr. Alex De La Cruz, founder of American Veteran Benefits. Also, Charlton Curry, the business development consultant of RDC. And also, not only that, the chairman of the National Black Wall Street Project, Northern California branch, under the tutelage of Reverend Tony Pierce, the president and CEO of National Black Wall Street Project. Also, Double O, co-chair of the payout committee on the National Black Wall Street Project. She also has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. You can Google it on Access Sacramento. It's a great program. She also endorses the RDC team. You can give it all praise. I said give it praise. I want to give praise to also brother Lee Shabazz. He also filmed the last reparations meeting that was held at the Secretary of State building in California. So now that you know you can give that some praise, I'm not checking and jobbing. I do love what I'm doing with Big C Sports Podcast. But unlike a lot of shows that only want to say touchdown, home run, 3-point play, old man Willie, he's going all the way. I love doing that too. But before I get into some sports, and I'm going to talk about NBA basketball where the Knicks are playing, and also we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, we have the Indiana Pacers, Boston Celtics. Everybody's in play tonight, those 2 games tonight. But I got to tell you something that I came across a great mind. And her name is attorney Diedra Pearlman. And I learned some things that she talked about for reparations. When people say, oh, Big C, can't you just tell me who won the game? Well, she talked about reparations and how so many people in the legal minds, meaning legal minds are telling you all over the world how reparations are necessary and how it can be paid out. I want you to hear this and listen with your heart, mind, body, and soul.
Part of that DNA effort is Antoinette Harrell Miller, who heads up a genealogy organization here in the United States. And we call her the peonage detective. There's documentation online about the peonage research she does, researching families. We're able to do a lot of research connecting families. So that really is, I never thought of that as an issue. We've been doing this research since 2004 when DNA testing became publicly available. In addition to that, we also, in addition to her, we also work with Sister Empress Chi, who is the founder of the Million Women March, the one that took place in 1997 out of Philadelphia. We work very closely on the issue of genocide, and in particular, most recently, we issued an open letter to the President of the United States, who is the person who carried the genocide bill through Congress, which is the law of the land. It's called the Proxmire Act, and we are asking for him to use that law because it addresses many of the issues that, for example, H.R. 40 would address, because quiet as it's kept, descendants of enslaved Africans are victims of genocide. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and that is the injury that we all continue to suffer from, in part because we've been separated from our national and ethnic roots, and we are subjected to conditions in life that are really destroying our survival in whole or in part. I had to do something, and I made a decision that I was going to try to find out, more about what I could do to deal with this issue of reparations. Now, why reparations? When I was a kid, my grandfather used to always talk about the 40 acres and a mule that we were owed, and it stayed with me, and I knew that there was something here, and so I applied to law school, and I specifically declared that I wanted to be an architect to build the case for reparation. And needless to say, I didn't get accepted to too many law schools, but I certainly got accepted to the one that I needed to go to, and that was New England School of Law in Boston, Massachusetts, that happened to be right next door to Rhode Island, which turned out to be one of the most critical states engaged in the slave trade. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, and I thought it was going to be the government, but after learning about, and I was there at a good time because there was a case out of California, Cato v. U.S., where there was a decision that the folks could not sue. There were people that filed pro se, that was on their own behalf without an attorney. The decision was that they could not move forward with their case because the federal government had not waived its sovereign immunity. So I had to think about what other possible ways one might go about pursuing reparation.
I want to just pause here to say that she is talking about the history of slavery on Wall Street. The S&P 500, the same Wall Street that everybody looks to the stock market to see what's happening with the way the company or the countries in performing. The S&P 500, the top 500 companies in the United States, they're all traded on Wall Street, the stock exchange. The stock exchange, one of their original commodities was black bodies, slavery. Oh, we don't need to pay no reparations. You're going to hear her talk about the unjust enrichment, and while reparations are mandatory and necessary, even spiritually.
And I began to look at private estates and corporations. And the reason why they seem more accessible is because I learned about other arguments that could be made other than, for example, a case against the government. I looked at something in the area of equity, the law of equity, or the law of restitution. And basically, what I learned is that, if you can make an argument that a party has been unjustly enriched, you might be able to persuade a court to decide in your favor. And so that was the theory that I was moving forward with, unjust enrichment. I did this paper and ultimately applied to an internship. Actually, I worked with NCOBRA. That was when law students are typically trying to get into law firms. I was looking for the place I could build this case. And NCOBRA, my mentor was on the panel earlier today, the person that supervised me for a whole summer, Adjua Ayatoro. Spent the whole summer working with her. I studied the 13th Amendment, I think maybe even some 14th Amendment, but mostly 13th Amendment. But we didn't touch on this particular theory, but at least they knew my heart was there. I had to wait until I graduated from law school to begin developing a case. And one of the companies that I learned about, and thank you so much for switching the slide, was Aetna Life Insurance. As a student, I learned that they had written slave policy. So when I graduated, I called them up and I asked them, for copies of slave policies. And in particular, I asked about policies that might have been written on my own ancestors. And they said, well, we don't have any from the state we were from, South Carolina, but we'll send you what we have, and we'll send you some things on some other companies as well. And so what you have here in figure 2 is a copy of a slave policy written by Aetna in the 1850s, excuse me. But this was written on the life of a group of enslaved Africans, okay? The beneficiary of this policy was the slave owner, okay? So if you look, you can see the young ages. The 10-year-old, there's a 10-year-old, there's an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old, 19-year-old. It even lists their occupations: nurse, cook, and so on and so forth. Bottom line is that these policies were written at a time when the transatlantic slave trade had closed. A lot of enslaved people were expensive, and a lot of folks might not have purchased an enslaved African, but for the fact that companies like Aetna, they go ahead, make the purchase. If they die, we have you covered. Now, they didn't cover for the full value of the enslaved person's life. And if you can see in those columns here, you can see the value of the person might be $400, but they're covered for $300. And that was to discourage the slave owner from working the enslaved person to death. But nevertheless, it did happen. And in fact, it happened in the case of, for example, New York Life Insurance Company. They were called the Nautilus Company. When they were founded, their first 100 policies, 1/3 of them were written on the lives of enslaved Africans. And the first policy that was ever paid out was on the life of an enslaved African, someone who worked in coal mines. And this is one of the things that these policies help make happen. The employment of these expensive humans, these expensive cattle, in ultra-hazardous capacities. So one of the things you have to think about, when you see that New York Life Insurance Company commercial, is that it's the company that made it possible for us to be enslaved in ultra-hazardous capacities, and they made money off that. 1/3 of their first investment, this is where the money came from slave policies.
Can you imagine that when you say, oh, we don't need to pay no reparations? Can you just tell me who won the game? I tell you, today's show is so different. I want you to realize, as we're standing up for the tip-off, and we're screaming, touchdown, Hogan, 3-point play, old man Willie, he's going all the way. A lot of corporations in America, they got rich on slave policies. Where the slaves could not buy a life insurance policy to pass on to the beneficiaries, the white Americans that owned slaves, when the slaves died, the white people got the policy. Can you imagine you go buy a life insurance policy today and you pass away, a person that owned you got the slave beneficiary? When you say, oh, we don't need to pay no reparations, I didn't own slaves. the country, and there's businesses that you do business with to this day. They benefited from slave insurance policies.
When I called Aetna up, I didn't call up alone. I did reach out to reporters to let them know what was going on. And that was in part my own insurance, so to speak. I didn't want them to think, I was trying to do anything for myself. I made it very clear to them that I wanted them to create a trust fund that would benefit the descendants of enslaved Africans. I wasn't interested in anything for myself. This was for everyone. And they said they would do something, but when the story hit the media, they changed their mind. And at that point, it became clear that I might have to do more than just call them up and give them a chance to be proactive and do something great. One thing that worked out in my favor at that time was that Tom Hayden, a senator from California, learned about Aetna and decided that he was going to introduce a bill that initially was called the Aetna bill. Okay, and I think he made that decision very quick. Probably like the story broke in late February, Black History Month in 2000, and by March he had already introduced the bill, and by the end of September of 2000, the bill had passed. It became the first slavery ever disclosure law in the United States. And it required that any insurance company doing business in California would have to report on their role in slavery. Now, this bill was not just designed for the state of California to be informed, but it was designed so that descendants of enslaved Africans could have access to documents that would help us to reconnect with our families. I mean, once again, I mentioned earlier the DNA testing that we are engaged in, and that's all part of reversing this thing called genocide. Okay, so these bills were designed to assist in that process, so that we can find ourselves, so we can pull our families back together. So I want to mention that because I'm going to talk a little bit more about those bills in a second. Okay, so I'm listing a few of the companies that ultimately we realized we just had to sue. Boston Financial Corporation, today is called Bank of America. They were in the litigation, and so were these other companies. But basically, the banks played a role in financing slave trading voyages, or they gave loans to slave owners and used enslaved people as collateral. These are some of the circumstances. The insurance companies, like I said, Aetna, New York Life, these are companies that played a role in financing the enslavement. Lloyd's of London, very unique. The Zong case, you're going to see a little something about that. Comes out of Lloyd's of London, companies that were engaged in the same kind of business Lloyd's of London is involved in. They finance this transatlantic slave trade, okay? And the way they worked was that if an enslaved person was sick during the voyage, the policy, the practice was to dump them in the ocean while they're still alive, because if they get to the shore and they die, these companies will not pay the insurance to the folks that own the slave trade voyage.
Now, for you as a human being, and you have the talk of reparations for descendants of child slavery, where we have descendants of Holocaust who've gotten reparations, assisted by the United States government, along with Germany and the United Nations. And when you realize that it was black soldiers that helped liberate Nazi Germany, they helped get rid of Hitler. And when it comes to those soldiers coming back home, they didn't get the GI Bill, not the black ones, only the white ones did. So for those of you, just a little bit more education. It's for decent people. I know you want to hear touchdown, home run, three-point play. Oh, man, Willie, he's going all the way. Get the hole. But a lot of these, as I mentioned before, a lot of our professional sports teams owners, and you see those big insurance companies and banks inside of those stadiums, where there is, you already heard the lawyer talk about it. And they started out insuring slave owners for slaves. And people go, oh, I didn't own slaves. Why would I have to pay? It's about corporations paying that get unjust enrichment.
Okay, so Lloyd's of London, that's pretty much what they stand for. There are other companies involved in that. AIG is another insurance company, similar stuff. These are companies we sued, by the way. CXX Corporation, these railroad companies, they use enslaved Africans to lay the tracks. Those same tracks that we ride on today around the country, enslaved Africans laid those tracks. They brought in folks from other countries at some point, but enslaved Africans laid those tracks.
When you watch railroads throughout the United States from sea to shining sea, and they're transporting goods and services and merchandise, we talked about the longshoremen, that the march that I attended this morning at the state capitol, Secretary of State's building, and there are people right now that are having their claims denied when they have injuries. But it was black Americans that laid many of the train tracks and the railroad tracks that we cross over on a daily basis. Oh, we don't deserve no reparations. And they did it without compensation.
Throughout the South and other parts of the country. The tobacco companies, you know the story. That's a little bit more typical, what we know of planting and packing tobacco. So these are the kinds of things that the kinds of companies we sue. Now, so let me see. We can move to the next slide. And those were based on the fact that many of these companies, when confronted with information about their role in slavery, lied. They lied to the public. And it's interesting because there was a law review article written by Tara Kola Ramchandani from Harvard University, where she talks about the judicial recognition of harms of slavery, consumer fraud as an alternative to reparations litigation. And basically, what she argues is that if we were able to complete our litigation, we would have been successful on the basis of the consumer fraud arguments. And that is because the court actually held that we can move forward with our consumer fraud. Okay. That the consumer fraud arguments were good. And so that was the good law. And that is why we say that we had an unprecedented legal victory. Never in the history of our freedom have we had any kind of victory on the issue of reparations. And here, in the context of consumer fraud, the court said we could move forward. Unfortunately, we ran out of money and we could not pursue those claims, but nevertheless, the precedence is there. And so at this time, we find ourselves with companies who, believe it or not, continue to lie about their role in slavery. And they're doing that in the context of the slavery era disclosure. Now, I mentioned those earlier. I talked about California having been the first. In California, you are the first in so much. Thank God for you.
Yes.
About 14 other slavery era disclosure laws have been passed around the country, all of them sort of following in the steps of Tom Hayden. They are in municipal governments or they are state governments, just a variety of them. But you happen to have a few really great ones in California, and one that I've been paying attention to is in San Francisco, and I've been tracking their reports, and I have discovered that one company really is very stubborn about telling the truth about their role in slavery. And at this point, I want to give you what I think the Restitution Study Group can help you with. You need to know who should pay. I don't think it should simply be up to the taxpayers of California. I do believe that these companies that are lying on these slavery era disclosure reports should be held accountable. And some of the laws, like the one in San Francisco, does create the opportunity. First of all, these companies can be punished based on their profit for their lies about their role in slavery. But I want to tell you one of the companies, and I'm going to sort of hint at one because we're still doing research around the other one, but Bank of America, unfortunately, they do not want to share the history that they have in slavery. And what's unique about it is that they played a role in slavery. Their predecessor company, the bank was called the Providence Bank of Rhode Island. Bank of America issued their slavery era disclosure report. And let me see, I think it was in the 17th, 2017, June of 2017.
I want to also just mention that during the foreclosure crisis that swept the country, you had some major banks that intentionally foreclosed on African-American homeowners. Some of these same banks, they got unjust enrichment through participating and funding slave owners with loans and vessels. And when black Americans were murdered or died, they received the benefits of the insurance policy. Oh, we don't deserve to pay no reparations. We're going to close with a few more thoughts from this brilliant mind.
Let me see. This may be a little early than that, but let me just say this, that the report is part of a report that was issued by the clerk for 2017. Bottom line is that they claim to have done research on the Providence Bank of Rhode Island and have found no documentation connecting them to slavery or the slave trade. But it is widely known that their bank, Providence Bank of Rhode Island, is a bank that served slave traders. And in fact, slave traders founded the bank. It was founded by John Brown, who was an advocate for the slave trade. He was like the major spokesperson for slavery in the state of Rhode Island. He founded the bank. He was engaged in slave trading at the time, and so were many of the other shareholders. And the bottom line is that it's very difficult to find the documentation, but we were blessed to have gathered up primary documents for at least 28 voyages. And just for these 28 voyages, the violation of state and federal law should have yielded the current value, $35 billion, okay? This is how much money they should have had to pay. Of course, this is the present value based on the number of slave trading voyages and the number of enslaved Africans. They'll know who they are when they hear what I'm saying. This particular company is associated with Barclays. Now, we did research on Barclays, and we initially, Barclays Bank did not want to share the truth about their role in slavery.
You know, Barclays Bank is the home of the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets. Barclays Bank is the name that's on the building Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Nets, NBA basketball. Can you believe that? In your last get the hole, 4-3, yes! Barclays Bank. We love watching our beautiful, intelligent black bodies run up and down the courts. You know, Barclays Bank, they participated in giving loans to slave owners.
And we, the Restitution Study Group, engaged in a report, research to issue a report where we found that the bank actually was responsible for 125 slave trade voyages. And in the course of that, of those voyages, something like 38,620 Africans were enslaved, okay? And of that number, 6,045 never made it from Africa to the Americas, okay? They were lost at sea. Now, one of the things I mentioned a little earlier was about the Zahn. Thank you so much. About the Zahn case, the slave ship murders. And what's happening here, once again, was that they were dumping them at sea. They didn't think they were going to make it to shore alive, and this is how they ended up. And we call this is straight up genocide right here. And I don't know the exact total number of Africans that ended up in the ocean, but there was substantial, millions of us ended up dead at sea. And we were dumped alive. And that's really important to know when you think about these companies that played a role in slavery. So once again, with this Barclays research, there's a major company, probably one of the largest of its type in the world, that's associated with Barclays. And on their report, they did not mention anything about this 38,620 enslaved Africans associated with their business. Is that please do consider these companies. There are many more. As far as the Restitution Study Group is concerned, we are engaged in preparation for litigation against some of these companies because, of course, there are consumer fraud laws that are being violated. We all are relying on these reports to be able to trace our ancestors. We want to know, where did these folks end up? And that brings me to one other issue that comes up a lot. It's very controversial, but I'm going to put it out there. Who should be compensated? Okay. Now, based on the research that we do, the Restitution Study Group, we know that with these companies, especially the ones that engage in the transatlantic slave trade, the people that they enslaved did not all end up in the United States, right? I'll give you an example. With the Barclays research, of that 38,600, just give you some percentages. We use the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database to gather this information. But we know that 48% of them ended up in Jamaica. Okay? About 8% of them ended up in the United States. Okay? So this is one example. As far as Bank of America is concerned, the numbers, the places that they were dropped off are different. But one of the things I do want to mention about Bank of America, I want to put it in the record. They violated U.S. law and Rhode Island state law. And so they had to engage in dropping enslaved Africans off in foreign countries because Rhode Island did not allow them to engage in the slave trade at all. But the United States government only allowed them to engage in the enslavement of people if they were brought from Africa to the United States. Okay? They couldn't do that. So they had to drop them off in other countries. So most of Bank of America, any wealth associated with their slave trading activity would probably show that Africans were mostly dropped off in the Caribbean. But there are there's indications that many were brought into the South. Okay? So I just want to put that out there. With companies, you're going to have situations where money that they owe doesn't necessarily belong exclusively to descendants of enslaved Africans in America. And what I would recommend under those circumstances is definitely still pursue these companies, because this is just one example. These are just one example where you have them dropped in different places. Definitely pursue, but create separate funds that might work for two different groups of people.
You're right. Can you believe that? When it comes to reparations,
what the descendants of enslaved Africans are. Okay, thank you very much.
Brilliant story by Diedra Farmer Pearlman. You get that on Big C Sports. I told you today's show is a lot different. So I love talking about reparations and what it means to me. I know a lot of people have their own thoughts about it, but I wanted you to hear a voice that's more powerful than who won a game. We have the great Nikola Jokic. The Joker has won his third NBA MVP award through Kia, the third in 4 seasons, so congratulations to him. At the same time, I gotta say tonight's NBA basketball, the New York Knicks They're at home at Madison Square Garden versus the Indiana Pacers. And you won't hear a word about reparations. And I told you the New York Stock Exchange, it was built on black bodies, on slaves. You only hear about that on Big C Sports Podcast because most of us have drank the Kool-Aid where we don't want to hear about anything that has to do with reparations when it comes to the descendants of child slavery. But I love giving you the real talk. That's what I love about Big C Sports Podcast. Also, the Dallas Mavericks, they're at the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight for Game 2. All spread 11 war. So as those teams get ready to battle for who's going to win a game, I love what I'm doing with Big C Sports Podcast. And I'm so proud of it because I'm trying to bring in some attorneys who understand that doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. And I know we've heard from the New York State Governor Kathy Hochul. She talked about the slave trade and how Wall Street profited on the sale of black bodies. And now when we hear about New York, we want to hear touchdown, over, three-point play. Oh, man, Willie, he's going all the way. And that's what they got in a position to do. I'm telling you, there's so much that we can do in making sure that reparations are paid for descendants of child slavery. I said it about yesterday. Everything I say on Big C Sports Podcast, you can Google it. I want you to Google the Just Act report, the JUST Act, and it says that Germany has taken commendable steps to confront its role as the perpetrators of the Holocaust and to ensure the Holocaust victims and their heirs receive restitution or compensation. Germany also honors and remembers the victims of the Holocaust and has worked to cultivate a culture of remembrance. And we give that praise. It also, its restitution measures range from compensating former owners and their heirs' assets wrongfully seized during the Holocaust to making substantial financial contributions to victims' funds and survivors' pensions. From 1945 to 2018, the German government paid approximately $86.8 billion in restitution and compensation to Holocaust victims and their heirs. You got to understand that. What's different about descendants of child slavery? In the aftermath of World War II, where black soldiers helped liberate Nazi Germany from Hitler's reign, the United States of America, France, and the United Kingdom occupied the areas of Germany that in 1949 became the Federal Republic of Germany. In November 1947, the United States military government promulgated martial law, or military law number 59, which became the foundation of the first program of restitution of Holocaust assets. Similar laws enacted in the French and British zones between 1947 and 1949, it enabled the return of property that had been seized by the Nazi regime or soldiers and sold under duress. You got to realize that reparations for descendants of child slavery is the right thing to do. There's so many precedents all over the world where people already got in compensation. We didn't get the Homestead Act of 1862. That only went to white Americans. So you heard it from a great mind, a legal mind, Diedra Pearlman, about why reparations are necessary and that corporations want to do the right thing under law. They got to do the right thing under law. And that's what I want to see. I want to get that praise. I love doing it with Big C Sports Podcast. I will close with this. I talked about NBA basketball, and we have the New York Knicks, and they're playing the Indiana Pacers in Game 2 at Madison Square Garden in New York City, not that far from the New York Stock Exchange. And those beautiful black and brown bodies going to run up and down the court, but they say nothing about reparations. The same thing in Boston, where the Cleveland Cavaliers will take on the Boston Celtics in Game 2. Beautiful black and brown bodies running up down the court. Nothing about reparations. But there are decent people all over this country that are saying, you know what? Maybe sports can take a back seat. A horse at the Kentucky Derby, Majestic Dan, got more attention than reparations. How does a horse get more attention than reparations? From decent people. I'm not talking about the Southern Confederates, and some are in media. I'm not naive to that. but for decent people in the land of the free and the home of the brave. These are things that the President of the United States can address. I'm going to play you one more thought that you can't say you didn't hear on Big C Sports Podcast.
Thank you so much. I am grateful for this opportunity to be here. Thank you, Chair Camila Moore and the members of the task force. My name is Diedra Pearlman. I am Executive Director of the Restitution Study Group. I'm thrilled to be here also, finally speaking with Mary Frances Berry, because quietly she has played a major role in our work. So that's all I'm going to say. Okay. But as far as the Restitution Study Group is concerned, are an institute that engages in research as well as litigation against companies that are complicit in slavery. At least we have found documentation verifying their complicity in slavery. Some of the other organizations that we work with and kinds of things that we do with them, one organization is the New Future Foundation, headed up by Dr. Dolores Blakely, Queen Mother Dr. Dolores Blakely. We are engaged in DNA testing for self-repair. We actually go to Africa, we test Africans, we do DNA tests, and we have created a database where we connect descendants of enslaved Africans with their actual African families. Now, in particular, most recently, we issued an open letter to the President of the United States, who is the person who carried the genocide bill through Congress, which is the law of the land. It's called the Proxmire Act, and we are asking for him to use that law because it addresses many of the issues that for example, H.R. 40 would address, because quiet as is kept, descendants of enslaved Africans are victims of genocide. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And that is the injury that we all continue to suffer from, in part because we've been separated from our national and ethnic groups, and we are subjected to conditions in life that are really destroying our survival in whole or in part.
As I say, in your life, have you ever? I just love what I'm doing with reparations. So I love doing that with Big C Sports Podcast. I know it's different. I know it's different than a lot of shows, but there's some things that are more important than sports, and I want to bring that into you, and that's my story. Well, as I always tell you, if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink, because mothers against drunk drivers are mad. And fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. If you know anybody drinking, don't let them drive, because the life you save may be your own, or someone that you love, or someone that they love. That's my story, and I'm taking with it. As I always tell you, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that crap. If anybody's hurt you, you need more LEADA in your life. LEADA is an acronym for love is the answer. Anybody that's slapping you, I only slapped you because you made me mad. Anybody that's kicking you, I only kicked you because you made me mad. Anybody choking you out, I only choked you because you made me mad. Pick up the phone and call 911. No man, woman, or child should ever have to put up that crap. That's my story, and I'm taking with it. Well, as you always know, I always tell you this. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. And every time I listen to Big C Sports, all I think about is reparations now, reparations forever. And then I float like a butterfly, and I sting like a bee. I love praising my beautiful family on my mother's side, my great-grandparents, Mama and Pop, my grandparents, Mudin and Hezekiah, and then I can always depend on my mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. Under the Head Start program, a food program, and also coaching all boys Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. Always stand, rise, and shine. The best person I ever met in my life. I love my mama with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then on my father's side, my grandparents, Albert Curry and Alberta Curry. He was a pastor, had 3 churches. They also owned 2 gas stations in Oakland. And then when I was 8, they also owned 40 acres of land. When I was 8 years old, walking through my grandmother's hallway in Oakland, about 10 o'clock at night, I felt a hand on my forehead. She said, "What are you doing, young man, going to get some more cookies?" I said, "Well, what are you doing? Grandma, it's 10 o'clock at night. You normally go to bed at 8:30. She said, "What are you doing, young man, going to get some cookies?" I said, "Cookies and baby crap to what I'm doing, Grandma. I'm going to get my reparations." But a couple of cookies wouldn't hurt, if that makes sense to you. But she always poured into me. She said, "There's something about your voice. I love hearing you speak." And now I'm on 29 podcast platforms and streaming on 4 TV platforms. And I'm championing reparations now. Reparations forever. And I have some bright legal minds that are also doing the same thing. It's for decent people. I told you about the Just Act. If you Google that, tell me how that's different from descendants of chattel slavery. There's no difference. It's time that companies pay up and not pretend that we don't know that we have documentation. And President Biden knows it also. They're going to be asking you for the vote, and remind them, reparations now, reparations forever. That's my friend of thinking with it. My beautiful father, former United States Air Force pilot and chief mechanic, always making sure the airplanes can fly high so we can all stay safe at night. He did not get the GI Bill. Always said, develop your mind to its highest extent. I love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful brother Todd, with that bombastic voice, sound like thunder and lightning when Todd would speak. Always saying, go forward. A voracious reader. I really do appreciate Todd. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful daughter Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate, 2 degrees with honors, in 3.5 years from a major university. Said at the very first interview for Big C Sports back at Salem Media, we became the only, for the first time in the history of the United States of America, that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network. Normally they go to ESPN. It's because of 2 black men in the crew, they started coming to that network, if that makes sense to you. And then, at the same time, Daisy, always trust God, Isaiah 54:17, that no weapon formed against you will prosper. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. College student, very smart, erudite, a good man. Always trust God. Malcolm helped me save trees. I used to always get newspapers to look up stats for Big C Sports Podcast. One day, Malcolm said, "Dad, why don't you just Google it?" And a light bulb went off. I've been Googling ever since. Now I'm on 29 podcast platforms. One day, Malcolm said, "Dad, you want to see Big C Sports on TV?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say, play Big C Sports. You see your show come up." That's before it was even on the air. Shortly after that, it's on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Malcolm, you can be anything you want to be. Always trust God. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. You can be anything you want to be. And then Big C, with all that wealth and knowledge over the years, always saying you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Let's get ready to rumble. I love saying welcome to the show. As we nominated, Big C Sports Podcast. I have no scripts. I have no three-rated on the podcast. I have no producer in my ear. I have that gland in the brain called the pineal gland. The ancients called it the third eye. And I use that third eye to do my show. And I always do my show loud and proud. I'm going to ask you to do something for me, too. And do it for Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King. They champion reparations now. Reparations forever. Say it like you cheer for the NBA basketball championships. Champion reparations now. Reparations forever. Say it one more time. You know you want that money. You know you want liberty and justice for all. As we champion reparations now, reparations forever. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a super fantastic day.